Imagine this. A team of scientists stumbles upon an ancient Valorian temple, only to discover strange symbols that connect humanity to an extraterrestrial civilization, symbols that respond to a phrase in Sanskrit. Could humanity and this ancient alien race share a forgotten, deeply intertwined history? What if everything we thought we knew about our place in the galaxy was just the beginning? Welcome to Galactic Conundrums, where we explore the most mind-bending secrets of the universe. In today's thrilling journey, we dive into this shocking discovery and the profound truths that shake the very foundation of what we believed about extraterrestrial life. Before we dive in, make sure to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss out on more jaw-dropping revelations that will leave you questioning everything. Ready to uncover the truth? Let's begin. The grand chamber of the Galactic Council stretched before them, an awe-inspiring space that seemed to contain the weight of entire civilizations. Towering pillars of translucent crystal rose high above, their edges glowing with an ethereal light that pulsed softly, casting the chamber in a soft, otherworldly glow. The air itself felt charged, heavy with centuries of accumulated wisdom, as though the very walls of this ancient structure had absorbed the knowledge of countless species. At the center of this immense hall sat the Valorians. Their forms shimmered in the dim light, their bioluminescent scales reflecting an array of colors that seemed to ripple like waves on the surface of a dark ocean. They exuded an almost regal presence, their features sharp and majestic, like beings forged from the very stars themselves. Their robes, flowing with an almost liquid-like quality, reflected the grandeur of their civilization. Their eyes, glowing faintly, surveyed the room with an air of quiet superiority, taking in the human delegates with cold, dismissive stares. The human representatives, standing at the opposite end of the chamber, looked small in comparison. Encased in bulky environmental suits, their every movement was cumbersome, the whir of machinery and hiss of pressurized air a stark contrast to the smooth, effortless movements of the Valorians. The suits were a reminder of their fragility and necessary protection against the alien atmosphere of Valorian, but a symbol of their vulnerability. Each breath they took was audible in the tense silence of the room, a constant reminder of their physical inferiority. Among the Valorians, one figure stood out: Valora, the High Commissioner. His presence seemed to command the very air around him, and his gaze, as sharp as the edge of a blade, swept across the humans before him. His body glowed with an intensity that suggested an arrogance born of thousands of years of superiority. His scales shimmered with an iridescent hue, radiating a cool, almost imperious light. Valora's voice broke the silence, cutting through the room like a thunderclap. It was deep, resonant, and laced with mockery. "Tell me," he began, his words dripping with disdain, "what makes you think your species deserves a seat on the High Council? You can barely survive in our atmosphere. Look at you trapped in your fragile suits, struggling to breathe, struggling to exist. How could you possibly be of any importance in this grand galactic order?" The Valorians around him chuckled softly, their laughter rising like the gentle hum of distant chimes. Their bioluminescent markings pulsed in rhythm with their amusement, their neck frills flaring in exaggerated displays of superiority. It was clear they found the human's very presence laughable. But standing before them, unmoving and unbowed, was Ambassador Liam Steele, the human representative. His suit, though cumbersome, did little to hide the quiet defiance in his stance. His eyes, visible through the helmet's visor, were fixed on Valora with an intensity that seemed to burn through the distance between them. His voice, when he spoke, was calm but firm, carrying the weight of centuries of human achievement. "High Commissioner Valora," he began, his words deliberate, "humanity has achieved faster than light travel in less than 3 centuries since discovering electricity. Our technological advancements, while still young compared to yours, show that we have potential. We are not here to claim superiority, but to demonstrate that we are capable of contributing to the greater galactic community." Valora's expression darkened, his lips curling into a thin, condescending smile. He raised one long, elegant hand, the movement so fluid it seemed to ripple through the air. "Your advancements mean nothing," he said, his tone dripping with arrogance. "In comparison to the 50,000 years of Valorian progress, your species is but a fleeting moment in the timeline of the galaxy. You were still throwing spears at each other while we perfected quantum mechanics." As the room echoed with laughter, Liam Steele stood tall, unwavering. Despite the mockery and disdain surrounding him, he refused to be intimidated. The weight of his words was undeniable, and the quiet defiance in his posture spoke volumes. The humans may have been seen as weak, but they were determined to prove they were more than the Valorians believed them to be. The tension in the air was palpable, like a storm brewing on the horizon, waiting to break. The fate of humanity, and their place in the galactic community, hung in the balance. The air inside the ancient Valorian temple on Proxima Centauri B was heavy, thick with the dust of millennia. As Eva and her research team stepped deeper into the darkened structure, the faint hum of their equipment echoed in the vast, hollow chambers. The walls, made of dark stone veined with traces of luminescent minerals, seemed to pulse faintly with an otherworldly energy, as though the temple itself was still alive, holding its secrets close. The temperature was cool, yet the air felt charged, as if something ancient, something powerful, lingered in the very atmosphere, waiting to be discovered. The flickering beams from their helmet lights caught glimpses of intricate carvings that spiraled across the walls, creating a maze of symbols and figures. At first glance, the markings seemed random, fractured, jagged lines and geometric patterns, but as their light settled, something far more curious emerged from the shadows. Eva's heart skipped a beat. The characters were unlike anything she had ever seen, yet there was something hauntingly familiar about them. Soft, curved shapes weaved around each other like flowing water, elegant and fluid in their design. They were not rigid or mechanical like the Valorian script she had seen before. These were alive in a way that spoke to her in whispers, calling out from the past. The smooth, sweeping arcs seemed to dance across the stone, beckoning them closer, as though the symbols themselves were trying to communicate. Eva's fingers hovered above the wall, tracing the strange characters. The texture of the stone was cool to the touch, but the carvings were soft, almost pliable, as if the walls themselves had been shaped by an unseen force, a force that had been long forgotten. With every movement, she felt a faint vibration under her fingertips, as if the markings were subtly shifting, adjusting, reacting to her touch. She stepped back and activated her scanning device, a sleek, advanced tool designed to analyze and map out any unknown symbols or languages. The device emitted a soft, almost imperceptible hum, as it began to process the data. Eva held her breath as the screen flickered to life, displaying the symbols in intricate detail. The device's algorithms began comparing the newly discovered language to known human scripts. Seconds ticked by as the device hummed louder, the glow of the screen casting an eerie light over Eva's face. She glanced at the data, eyes widening as the information appeared, Sanskrit and Latin. The resemblance was undeniable. The swirling, graceful shapes on the walls mirrored the ancient human languages more closely than she could have ever imagined. This is impossible, Eva whispered under her breath, her voice trembling with disbelief. The symbols, the very core of this alien civilization, were a bridge to humanity's past. They were not just Valorian markings, they were connected to ancient human languages, languages that had long since faded into myth. She motioned for the team to gather around as she ran further analysis. The connection was growing clearer by the second. The curved shapes matched almost perfectly with Sanskrit's intricate lines, while others bore an uncanny resemblance to the patterns found in Latin inscriptions. The mathematical precision of the glyphs, their rhythm, their flow was the same as those seen in humanity's earliest written history. One of her team members, Nathan, bent over her shoulder, eyes wide with shock as he processed the findings on his portable device. "Eva, you're right," he said, his voice shaky. "This isn't just similar, it's identical. These symbols share a genetic pattern with the languages our ancestors used. The connection isn't just cultural, it's genetic." Eva's mind raced, the enormity of the discovery unfolding before her. The walls weren't just covered in symbols. They were covered in a language that bridged the gap between two species. Valorians, humans, perhaps they were more connected than anyone had ever realized. This temple, this relic from a forgotten time, held the key to an unimaginable truth, that humanity was not so alone in the cosmos as they had once believed. The faint hum of the temple's energy seemed to grow louder, as if the walls themselves were reacting to the discovery. Eva's heart beat faster as she realized the implications of this find. This was no accident. The ancient Valorians had left this for a reason, for someone to find, for someone to piece together. And now, she and her team had unlocked that secret. Her fingers brushed lightly across the markings once more, and the vibration beneath her hand seemed to intensify, as though the temple itself was alive, reacting to the truth they had uncovered. The secrets of the past, human and Valorian alike, were finally beginning to unravel, and Eva knew that nothing would ever be the same again. The atmosphere inside the temple shifted as the weight of their discovery settled in. What had once seemed like a straightforward excavation had turned into something far deeper, something far more dangerous. The flickering light from their helmets cast elongated shadows against the ancient stone walls, now illuminated with an eerie, almost sentient glow. The symbols they had uncovered, these elegant, flowing characters, were no longer just cryptic markings on a wall. They were a message, one that transcended time and space, a message meant for more than just the Valorians. Eva's fingers trembled as she activated her portable terminal. The encrypted research data she had painstakingly compiled began to stream, transmitted securely through the deep layers of encryption meant to protect such a monumental discovery. Her heart raced. Every moment felt like it could be their last, for in the midst of the stone silence, there was an ominous feeling creeping in. It was as though the temple itself was alive, watching them, waiting for the inevitable consequence of the truth they had just unearthed. The low hum of the terminal filled the chamber, and as Eva watched the data transfer, her eyes widened with realization. This wasn't just a Valorian writing system, this was something that connected their species to humanity. The symbols on the walls, those once distant and incomprehensible shapes, now revealed a history far more intertwined than anyone had dared to believe. They were not just echoes of a past civilization, they were a thread woven through both human and Valorian existence, one that had been buried and forgotten for eons. Behind her, the rest of the team was silent. They too felt it, the energy in the air had shifted. The temperature had dropped slightly, and the walls seemed to vibrate faintly with an ancient hum, as if the temple itself was coming to life. The soft glow from the markings intensified, casting an ethereal light that bathed the room in a spectral radiance. It was almost as if the symbols were awakening, reacting to the discovery made by the humans. Eva swallowed hard, her eyes scanning the encrypted data. It was clear now. The truth that had been buried beneath centuries of silence was now unraveling before them. The connection was undeniable. The very same patterns in the Valorian script were mirrored in ancient human languages. The shared heritage, the common roots, were now laid bare. But before she could process everything fully, the sound of heavy footsteps echoed through the chamber. The deep thud of armored boots on the stone floor broke the reverie, and Eva turned sharply. Her breath caught in her throat. The Valorian guards had arrived. Tall, imposing figures dressed in ceremonial armor lined the temple's entrance. Their bioluminescent scales shimmered ominously in the dim light, their weapons silent energy blades glinting coldly. Their presence, once a distant thought, now felt like a threat pressing in on every side. Eva felt a wave of unease wash over her, the tension in the room palpable. The leader of the guards, a tall Valorian with dark, shimmering scales, stepped forward. His eyes locked onto Eva's with a piercing intensity, and a cold, almost predatory smile crossed his face. "You've gone too far," he said in a low, rumbling voice, each word laced with an unmistakable edge of danger. "This temple is sacred. You have no right to uncover what lies within." Eva's heart raced, but her resolve held firm. She quickly glanced at her team, signaling them to gather the equipment. They had to leave, but they couldn't leave empty-handed. With a steady hand, she sent the final encrypted files to the team's secured servers, ensuring that this discovery would not be lost no matter what happened next. As the Valorian guards closed in, their energy blades pulsing with a dangerous hum, the symbols on the walls seemed to pulse back in response. The faintest vibration under Eva's fingertips sent a shiver down her spine, and she knew the truth had been awakened, and there was no going back. This discovery, this connection between humanity and Valorians, was far more powerful than anything she had imagined. The guards could try to stop them, but they would not erase what had already been revealed. The room seemed to shrink as the walls drew in with an unspoken tension, the ancient temple standing as both a guardian and a prison for the truth that could no longer be contained. The path forward was uncertain, fraught with danger, but Eva knew one thing for sure. They had just uncovered the key to an ancient legacy that could change the fate of both species forever. Back on Valorian, the air was thick with tension as the High Council convened. The grand chamber, adorned with shimmering crystal pillars and a vaulted ceiling that seemed to touch the very stars, now felt like an arena where powerful forces would collide. The luminous walls, once a symbol of unity and strength, now cast long shadows over the Valorians seated in their ceremonial seats, their bodies glowing faintly in a dim light. At the center of the room, the council director, Valorian, stood, his form towering and unyielding like a living monument of ancient power. His scales rippled with a dark hue of fury, and his voice rang out like the strike of a gong, filling the room with the weight of his authority. "Impossible," Valorian snarled, his voice shaking the air with its intensity. "These findings are an affront to our culture. An insult to everything we have built. The idea that our language, our history, is linked to the humans, our inferiors, is an abomination." He slammed his fist onto the stone podium in front of him, sending a tremor through the chamber. The echoes reverberated off the walls, and for a moment, the room seemed to hold its breath, the tension palpable, as if the very structure of Valorian civilization was at stake. Several other council members nodded in agreement, their expressions dark with outrage. They murmured among themselves, their bioluminescent markings flashing with agitation. The very thought of sharing a heritage with humanity, mere primitives in their eyes, was unthinkable. To the Valorians, their 50,000 years of advancement placed them far above any other species in the galaxy. "The humans," another council member added, his voice dripping with disdain, "are nothing but a fleeting curiosity, a species still fumbling with basic concepts of science and technology. They have no place in our history." Eva's discovery, the symbols linking their two species, was too much to bear. It threatened to unravel everything they believed about their superiority. It was a truth they had spent millennia hiding. And yet, here it was, undeniable and bold, shining like a beacon in the dark. But just as the council members' anger reached a boiling point, a figure rose from her seat. Lyra Velora, the daughter of the High Commissioner, stood, her form calm yet unwavering. Her eyes, once filled with the unquestioning loyalty to her people, now reflected a new understanding, an understanding that had been growing ever since she had first heard of Eva's findings. The room fell silent as Lyra stepped forward, her movement fluid and graceful, like water flowing through ancient stones. Her scales, once glowing with pride, now shimmered with a gentle, almost serene light, as if they were reflecting her internal transformation. "Vorten," Lyra began, her voice steady and firm, "you are wrong." The words were soft at first, but they carried a weight that drew the room's attention like gravity pulling at the stars. Her eyes locked onto the council director, and the heat of the moment seemed to recede, replaced by a calm clarity. "Humans are not our enemies," she continued, her voice growing stronger with each word. "They are our brothers. Our shared history was hidden, lost to time, but now it has been uncovered. What we see before us is not a challenge to our greatness, but a reminder that we are not alone. We are not the sole masters of the galaxy. Our legacy is intertwined with theirs, and this discovery is not an insult, it is a gift." A ripple of disbelief passed through the council. Some of the members looked at her as though she had spoken a forbidden language, their disbelief palpable. They had spent so long basking in the illusion of Valorian supremacy that the idea of sharing a past with humanity was a bitter pill to swallow. Yet Lyra's words were undeniable. "The humans may be young," Lyra said, her voice now cutting through the tension like a blade, "but they are not weak. They have come far in a short time, and they are a species capable of great things. This shared history, this truth should be a bridge between us, not a wall. We have so much to learn from each other. It is time we accepted our place in the universe, side by side with humanity." Her words hung in the air, reverberating through the chamber like the sound of an ancient bell ringing across the stars. The once violent debates quieted, and the council members began to shift uneasily in their seats. The weight of Lyra's words began to sink in, and for the first time, there was a crack in the armor of their arrogance. Vorten, though still visibly shaken by the implications, clenched his fists. His eyes, though filled with fury, were now clouded with doubt. The truth had seeped into the cracks of his certainty, and he knew, deep down, that Lyra was right. The reality of their shared heritage was something no amount of anger or pride could erase. The silence in the room deepened, as though the very walls were waiting for the council's decision. And in that moment, the future of the Valorian dominion and its place in the galaxy hung in the balance. The atmosphere in the vast, crystalline chamber of the Valorian Science Council was thick with anticipation. The walls, once proud and glowing with the elegance of Valorian mastery, now seemed to hum with a strange energy, as if the very architecture itself was waiting for the truth to be revealed. The room was silent, save for the soft echoes of footsteps and the faint, rhythmic pulses from the bioluminescent markings on the walls, which flickered like stars caught in an eternal dance. Eva and Ambassador Emily Wong stood at the center of the chamber, the weight of their discovery pressing down on them like the unseen force of gravity. The council members sat in their seats, their eyes glowing faintly in the dim light, but their gazes were sharp and calculating, their bodies rigid with attention of what was about to unfold. They were the guardians of Valorian knowledge, their minds filled with centuries of wisdom. Yet today, that wisdom would be challenged by the undeniable truth that was about to be unleashed. Eva stood before the gathered council, her fingers trembling as she activated the holographic display. The air seemed to shimmer as the ancient symbols, those same swirling, fluid characters that had confounded her team, appeared in mid-air. They hovered like ghosts, their light faint at first, but gradually growing stronger as if the symbols themselves sensed their own power being revealed. The glyphs twisted and shifted, dancing in a pattern that seemed almost alive. "High Council," Eva began, her voice calm but filled with an unshakable certainty. "These symbols, which you have so carefully guarded for millennia, are not merely your own. They are part of something far greater, a shared legacy, one that connects not only your people but humanity as well." The room grew still. The words hung in the air, their weight settling like a stone. The Valorians, for the first time, felt something stir within them, a quiet ripple of disbelief, followed by a deepening unease. Without waiting for a response, Eva pressed on. "We have found undeniable evidence that the Valorian language shares a profound connection with ancient human languages. And it is not just the language, it is our genetic markers. Both species share a common ancestry, a link that ties us together in ways that have been lost to history." She took a step forward, her voice gaining strength with each word. "This is not just a theory. It is a fact." Her gaze swept across the room, meeting the eyes of the council members, who were now shifting uncomfortably in their seats. In that moment, Eva spoke the ancient Sanskrit phrase she had discovered in the ruins, words she had never expected to speak in this place. The syllables seemed to vibrate through the air, their resonance filling the chamber like the low hum of a distant, forgotten song. As soon as the final word left her lips, something extraordinary happened. The symbols on the display, which had been faintly glowing, flared to life. The room seemed to tremble, as if the very fabric of reality itself was reacting to what had just been revealed. The Valorian symbols on the walls flickered and pulsed, their glow intensifying, their intricate lines shifting as though they were alive. It was as if the ancient language had recognized the Sanskrit phrase, responding to it in a way no one had ever anticipated. The chamber was filled with a soft, vibrating hum, and for a moment, it seemed as if the entire room was vibrating with the energy of a truth long buried. The light from the symbols reflected off the walls in waves, each pulse echoing the rhythm of their shared past. The air itself felt charged, alive with a presence that was both ancient and infinite. The council members stared, their faces frozen in stunned disbelief. The symbols were no longer just marks on a wall, they were a bridge between two worlds, two species, two civilizations. The connection was undeniable. "Do you see it now?" Eva's voice broke through the silence, sharp and unwavering. "This is no accident. The connection between our species runs deeper than any of us could have imagined. These symbols, these markings, this is not just a language. This is a key to our shared history." For the first time, the Valorians were silent. They had been the masters of the galaxy for millennia, and yet here was a truth they could not deny: they were not alone in their greatness. They had not ascended alone. Their history, their culture, was intertwined with humanity in a way that could no longer be ignored. Eva's eyes glimmered with a quiet triumph as she saw the ripple of realization pass through the council members. The arrogance that had defined them for so long now seemed to waver, replaced by something far more profound: curiosity. The Valorians had always believed they were the pinnacle of creation, but now they faced a truth that shattered their understanding of their place in the universe. The genetic markers, the shared history. They were not the sole architects of civilization. They had never been alone. As the glow of the symbols filled the room, casting long, haunting shadows across the chamber, Eva knew this was just the beginning. The secrets of the past had been unlocked, and the future of both species would be forever changed. The truth was out there and it was waiting to be embraced. The air in the grand hall of Valorian had changed. What had once felt like a cavernous void of tension and resistance now pulsed with a quiet energy, as if the very atmosphere itself was alive with the weight of the transformation taking place. The massive crystalline pillars of the council chamber glowed faintly, reflecting the subtle shift in the fabric of the room. The oppressive silence had given way to something else, something powerful, something ancient. Eva and Lyra stood side by side, their gazes locked onto the scene unfolding before them. Around them, the once cold and distant Valorians had begun to shed their layers of arrogance and suspicion. Young Valorians, their bodies glowing with radiant energy, stood in concentric circles, their voices rising in unison. They began to chant, their ancient tongue flowing like a river of sound, weaving a melodic pattern that seemed to resonate with the very heart of the chamber. The words were not merely spoken, they seemed to echo through the walls, through the very stone of Valorian itself, carrying a message from the past, a truth that had been buried for eons. The chant was a call to unity, a call to the shared history that had been hidden for so long. As the young Valorians sang, their voices merged into one, a single force that reverberated through the chamber. The sound carried an energy that vibrated within Eva's bones, and she felt it resonate deep within her own soul. This was not just a chant, it was a symbol of awakening, of two civilizations coming together at long last. And then, as if in response to the song, the symbols on the walls, those ancient, living glyphs, began to pulse with light. At first, it was faint, a subtle shift in the glow, but then it grew stronger, brighter, until the entire chamber was bathed in a soft, golden radiance of their combined energy. The symbols that had once seemed so alien, so disconnected, now glowed with an intensity that spoke of unity, of an unspoken connection between the Valorians and humans. The pulsing light from the symbols rippled outward, cascading through the room in waves, touching every surface, every shadow, until the entire hall seemed to breathe with life. It was as though the walls themselves had come to life, responding to the energy of the chant, acknowledging the truth that had been revealed. The air seemed to hum with the sound of the past and future colliding, and for the first time in centuries, the Valorians were no longer alone in their supremacy. The human presence, once seen as inferior, now seemed an essential part of the cosmic tapestry they had woven. Lyra's hand rested on Eva's shoulder, her eyes wide with the same awe that filled Eva's heart. "This is it," Lyra whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "This is what we were always meant to do. To come together, to guide and be guided by each other." Eva nodded, her own eyes filled with a sense of wonder as she watched the transformation unfold. They had known for so long that humanity and Valorians shared a deep connection, but now, it was no longer just a truth, it was an undeniable reality. The air crackled with the electricity of it, and Eva could feel the weight of history shifting beneath her feet. The chanting grew louder, a crescendo of unity that filled the hall with a power that could not be ignored. As the sound reached its peak, the symbols on the walls flared brightly, their light illuminating the entire chamber in a blinding brilliance. In that moment, it was as though the past, present, and future had merged into one. The ancient divide between the two civilizations, the Valorians, who had once seen themselves as the rulers of the galaxy, and the humans, who had been relegated to the status of lesser beings, disappeared, replaced by the understanding that they were always meant to stand side by side. The realization spread quickly, like a fire catching wind, sweeping through the crowd of Valorians and humans alike. The walls no longer felt like barriers but like bridges, links between two worlds, two peoples, finally coming together after thousands of years of separation. Eva turned to Lyra, her voice filled with the weight of the moment. "We did it. We've opened the door." Lyra's smile was filled with pride, but also with a quiet sadness, as though she knew the road ahead would be long and fraught with challenges. "This is just the beginning, Eva. We've only just begun to understand what we can accomplish together." As the final notes of the chant reverberated through the chamber, the light from the symbols began to fade, leaving a lingering glow that filled the room with a sense of peace, a sense of purpose. The unity that had once seemed impossible was now a living, breathing truth. The two civilizations, Valorians and humans, had crossed a threshold. They had come together, not just in knowledge, but in spirit. And as the last of the glowing light dimmed, Eva felt it, the weight of a new dawn. One that would reshape the future of both species. The once imposing halls of Valorian had transformed. What was once a place of isolation and grandeur now hummed with the energy of discovery and collaboration. The massive, crystalline spires that had towered over the Valorian capital seemed to glow with a new, vibrant light. Their sharp, jagged edges had softened, becoming symbols of openness, as if the very stone that had once kept the secrets of the Valorian people was now welcoming those from beyond. The grand architecture, once reserved only for the Valorians, now stood open to a new reality, one where humanity was no longer seen as beneath them, but as equals. Inside the vast archives of Valorian, the air was thick with the excitement of scholars from both worlds, humans and Valorians working side by side. The once quiet, empty halls were now alive with the sound of murmured conversation and the rustle of ancient scrolls being unrolled. At the center of it all stood a vast array of ancient texts, some centuries old, others millennia forgotten. These were the lost words of civilizations long past, Valorian manuscripts that had been hidden away, untouched for generations, and human records that had once seemed to hold only mythical significance. Now, they were being brought into the light, dusted off, and translated with newfound vigor. Eva stood in the heart of one of these archives, her hands gently sifting through a pile of scrolls that crackled with age. The texture of the paper beneath her fingers seemed almost alive, as if it remembered the hands that had written it long ago. The symbols, so familiar now, seemed to breathe with a new purpose. Each page she turned revealed another link in a chain of shared history between the Valorians and humans. As she studied the markings, she could feel the weight of their importance. These weren't just relics of a past civilization, they were keys to understanding the future. Beside her, Lyra Velera, who had once stood in the shadow of her father's authority, was now working alongside a human scholar. Their hands moved in synchronized gestures, flipping through a digital database that merged the best of Valorian and human technology. On the screen, ancient star maps once thought to be simple decoration were revealed to contain hidden coordinates that pointed to long-forgotten worlds, worlds that might hold further secrets of their shared origins. Lyra's eyes flickered with excitement as she realized the implications. These maps, they aren't just guides. They are a roadmap to something much older than we ever imagined, she whispered, her voice filled with wonder. Meanwhile, across the room, another group of scholars worked on something equally groundbreaking. Valorian and human engineers standing together over holographic blueprints, their minds blending the old with the new. The blueprints displayed a combination of Valorian machinery and human innovation, things neither species could have created alone. The Valorians, with their mastery of energy, and the humans, with their knack for creative problem-solving, were starting to weave together a new fabric of technology, one that could reshape not just their two civilizations, but the entire galaxy. The air hummed with the promise of new beginnings. The ancient symbols, once barriers between them, now served as bridges. Each discovery, each idea exchanged, opened doors to knowledge that had been lost for eons. It was not just the sharing of technology and science, it was the sharing of a vision. Human ingenuity combined with Valorian precision could unlock secrets that neither could have achieved alone. Outside the archives, the city of Valorian had begun to reflect the changes inside. The once aloof, cold spires had given way to vast open spaces, where human and Valorian families now lived and worked together. The streets were filled with a blend of both cultures, Valorians walking alongside humans, their bioluminescent skin flashing in sync with the vibrant human clothing. Small markets and workshops had sprung up, selling goods and technologies crafted by both species, a fusion of old and new, primitive and advanced. The distant hum of machines blending with the laughter of children as they played in the streets was a sound that had never existed on Valorian before. In one of the city squares, a public demonstration was taking place. A team of human and Valorian engineers had come together to showcase a newly built machine, an intricate device that combined Valorian energy principles with human mechanical innovation. The device, powered by a small crystal, began to hum with life, its energy pulsing in bright waves that shimmered through the crowd. The onlookers, a mix of Valorians and humans, gasped in awe as the machine lifted off the ground, hovering effortlessly, powered by the combined knowledge of two species. For the first time in history, Both Valorians and humans stood together, not just as allies, but as collaborators. The walls that had once separated their worlds had crumbled, replaced by something stronger: trust. The future that stretched before them was one of endless possibilities, where knowledge and technology would no longer be hoarded, but shared. Eva watched as Lyra, standing beside her, turned to her with a smile that reflected the hope of two civilizations, once divided, now united. "We're just beginning," Lyra said quietly, her voice thick with emotion. "And what we can accomplish together, no one has even begun to imagine." The weight of that promise settled in the air between them, a promise that held the future of both their worlds. And as the light of the setting sun caught the shimmering surfaces of Valorian's buildings, it felt as if the stars themselves were watching, waiting for this new chapter to unfold. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting its golden light over the newly transformed city of Valorian. The once rigid, towering spires that had loomed like symbols of domination now stood softened by the gentle glow of collaboration. Where cold, imposing walls had once separated Valorian districts from human enclaves, now the streets were woven together in a seamless tapestry of cultures. New structures, a blend of Valorian precision and human creativity, stretched toward the sky, their sleek forms adorned with bioluminescent patterns that shimmered in harmony with the vibrant human colors. As the day faded, the city came to life with a different kind of energy, an energy of purpose, of shared hope. Valorians and humans walked together, side by side, their movements fluid, no longer separated by the invisible barriers of distrust. Children of both species played in the streets, their laughter ringing out as they chased each other beneath the glowing lights that bathed the city in an otherworldly glow. The very air seemed charged with possibility, alive with the promise of a future that had never seemed possible before. Inside the sprawling research centers, once restricted areas now buzzed with activity. Teams of human and Valorian scientists worked side by side at holographic displays, their eyes alight with the spark of discovery. The soft hum of advanced machinery filled the air, the rhythmic beat of collaboration as Valorians and humans unlocked the mysteries of the universe together. What had once been separate fields of study, Valorian quantum mechanics and human biotechnology, were now intertwined, with new ideas flowing freely between the two species. In one corner of a vast lab, Eva and Lyra stood over a glowing console, reviewing the data on their latest joint project. A new form of energy generation, one that combined the Valorians' mastery of quantum fields with human ingenuity, was beginning to show promising results. The machine hummed softly as it absorbed energy from the air around it, a clean, infinite source of power that would change the fate of both civilizations. "This could power entire planets," Eva murmured, her voice filled with awe. "We've only just begun to scratch the surface of what we can achieve together." Lyra nodded, her eyes fixed on the display, her mind already racing with possibilities. "Our ancestors would never have imagined this, our two species working as one, building something that will benefit all." Elsewhere in the city, the energy of cooperation was palpable. Workshops and labs, once dedicated solely to Valorian projects, now opened their doors to human engineers, who contributed their own innovations to the work. The once intimidating, cold machinery of Valorian design had been adapted, merged with human technology, creating systems that were more efficient, more accessible, and far more advanced than either species could have achieved alone. Together, they were forging a future of boundless potential, one built on the shared foundation of their past and the limitless horizon of their new alliance. But it wasn't just in the research centers that the transformation was felt. The entire city had become a symbol of the new era, a living testament to what could be achieved when two worlds set aside their differences and came together. Public spaces were redesigned to reflect the unity of the two civilizations. Parks where bioluminescent Valorian plants grew alongside human-engineered structures, cafes where humans and Valorians shared stories over warm drinks, and vast communal spaces where art and culture from both species were celebrated. And now, on the eve of this new era, the entire city was gathering in the Grand Plaza for the momentous event that would officially mark the beginning of their shared journey. The air was thick with anticipation as thousands of people, both human and Valorian, gathered in a grand open space. The plaza was illuminated by thousands of floating orbs, each one carrying a soft, shimmering light that reflected the bioluminescence of the Valorians and the glowing warmth of human technology. A stage had been set up at the heart of the plaza, where leaders from both species, Eva and Lyra among them, stood, ready to address the masses. As the ceremony began, the crowd grew silent, the weight of the moment settling over them like a blanket of peace. Lyra stepped forward first, her voice strong but filled with emotion as she addressed the gathered crowd. Today marks the beginning of something that has been written in the stars for centuries. Today, we stand united not as two species, but as one. We share not only a past, but a future. A future where the combined strength of Valorians and humans will create a world of peace, of discovery, of boundless potential. The crowd erupted in applause, the sound echoing through the plaza, and for a moment, the earth itself seemed to respond, the light from the floating orbs flickering brighter in celebration. Eva followed, her eyes scanning the crowd. This is not the end of our journey. It is only the beginning. The truth that we have uncovered, the history we've shared, is a gift that will allow us to achieve things together that we never could have dreamed of alone. Our unity is not just our strength, it is our legacy. A legacy that will continue for generations to come. As she spoke, the holographic display behind her flickered to life, showing a vision of the future Valorian cities filled with lush green spaces and human-engineered structures, energy fields that powered entire planets, and ships that would carry the combined knowledge of both species across the stars. The crowd watched in awe as the vision unfolded before them, the possibilities endless. The final words of the ceremony echoed through the plaza, as the leaders of both species raised their hands, a gesture of solidarity. The crowd joined in, their voices uniting in a single cry of hope and promise, a cry that would be heard across the galaxy. "We are united," they shouted, the sound reverberating through the air, a declaration of peace and progress. "Together, we are one." And as the stars above shimmered in the vastness of space, it was clear that this was only the beginning. The legacy of unity had been forged, and the future united, bold, and limitless was theirs to create. As the lights of the grand ceremony faded and the echoes of unity still rang in the air, one thing became clear: the journey of Valorians and humans had only just begun. What was once an unbridgeable divide between two civilizations had now become a bond stronger than any force in the galaxy. Together, they had unlocked secrets of the past, reshaped their future, and created a new era that would echo across the stars for generations to come. But what lies ahead for these two worlds, united at last? What other ancient truths, hidden deep in the cosmos, remain waiting to be uncovered? And how will their shared history guide them as they venture into the unknown, together? The answers are out there, and with every step they take, the future becomes a little clearer. What do you think lies ahead for humanity and the Valorians? Could this new unity pave the way for even more incredible discoveries? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. I'm eager to hear your theories. If you enjoyed this journey and want to follow along as these two civilizations continue to evolve, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you won't miss the next chapter in their incredible adventure. The universe has only just begun to reveal its mysteries, and we're only getting started. Until next time, keep exploring, stay curious, and remember, sometimes the greatest discoveries are made when we come together.